All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really new frontier in AI. We're talking about an AI that's learning to see, to hear, and to understand our health in a way that's, well, it's totally new. And it could literally revolutionize medicine as we know it.
Okay, let's just get right into it. Think about this. Your health. It's so much more than just a bunch of words on a chart, right? Modern medicine is drowning in data, but getting to a really accurate diagnosis, that's a whole other ballgame.
So we're looking at what I like to call medicine's data overload problem. You know, to really understand what's going on with a patient, a doctor has to be a detective. They have to connect all these different dots from, tons of sources. It is a huge, huge data challenge.
So, how does a doctor actually see that full picture? Really think about it for a second. It's not just sitting down and reading through a patient's chart. No way. It's about looking at an X-ray and knowing what you're seeing. It's about hearing those super subtle sounds of a heartbeat. Or maybe it's analyzing weeks and weeks of data from a smartwatch or a sensor.
And right here, this is the heart of the problem. A patient's story, it's not just one thing. It's told through all these different types of data. You've got your images, your sensor data, audio, video, you name it. Now, most of the AI we talk about today, it's amazing with text. But that means it has this massive blind spot. It can read the clinical notes just fine, but it can't actually see the scan or hear the patient's cough. See the problem?
Which brings us to the big question. How in the world do you build an AI that can actually handle all this complexity? Well, the answer is a whole new kind of model, one that can see and hear and basically process all these different kinds of data at the same time. Okay, so let's break this down. What we're looking at here is a massive leap in what AI can do. On one hand, you've got your standard large language models, LLMs, which are great with text. But on the other, you have what we call multimodal LLMs, or MLLMs. And these guys, they're a game changer. They can take in text, images, audio, video, you name it, and then spit out one single cohesive insight. I love this analogy. It's the difference between a librarian who can just find you a book and a master detective who connects all the clues to solve the case.
So what exactly is a multimodal large language model? Put simply, these MLMs are designed to see the whole picture. They can look at the doctor's notes, analyze the MRI scan, and listen to a recording of the patient's breathing all at once. And from all that, they build a much richer, way more complete understanding of what's going on.
So how does an MLM actually think? It's kind of like a four-step process. First, it takes all that different data, the image, the sound, the text, and it translates everything into a common language, basically a bunch of numbers. Then, it lines all those translations up and fuses them together. Now, step 3, this is where the real magic happens. The AI starts analyzing the relationships between all the different data types. And finally, it spits out one single, unified insight based on that incredibly deep understanding.
Okay, that's the how. But what about the so what? What does all this actually mean for doctors and patients out there in the real world? This is where it gets really exciting. We're talking about the future of diagnosis. And the possibilities here are just, wow, they're huge. We're talking about AI that can analyze surgical videos to help surgeons get even better, or track chronic diseases just from your smartwatch data. The list goes on and on. But to really get it, let's zoom in on a couple of really specific, really powerful examples. First up, analyzing medical images with a level of detail we've never seen before. Think about a field like pathology. A pathologist looks at a single tissue sample, and inside that tiny slice is an entire universe of information. MLLMs can be an incredibly powerful assistant in navigating that universe.
So this quote is about a real model. It's called Conch. What it does is analyze these digital pathology slides to spot features of cancer, and then it gives a confidence score. Now, this is super important. It's not replacing the human expert. It's helping them. It streamlines their workflow, pointing them to the areas that need the most attention. It's almost like having a second set of expert eyes on every single slide, which can make their review faster and, maybe even more accurate.
Okay, so that's images, but it goes way beyond that. The next big thing is decoding the building blocks of life right from super complex text. We're talking about models that can read and understand incredibly dense scientific language. Take a look at this description. It's pretty dense, right? Now imagine an AI that can read, understand, and connect the dots between thousands of descriptions just like this one, buried in scientific papers. Think about what that means for drug discovery. It could just dramatically speed up the whole process of finding new drugs and therapies. That is the kind of power we are talking about here.
All right, so this all sounds amazing, right? But
And this is a big but. With great power comes, well, big problems. This kind of transformative tech brings some really serious technical and ethical challenges to the table, and we absolutely cannot afford to ignore them.
When you look at the challenges, they're not just one thing. They're all over the map. You've got the purely technical stuff, like just figuring out how to fuse all this different data together. That's a huge piece of the puzzle. But then you have these other, equally massive areas, things like bias and fairness, data privacy, and just being able to understand why the AI made the decision it did. Let's talk about the danger of algorithmic bias. It really boils down to something pretty simple. Garbage in, garbage out. If the data we feed the AI is biased, then the AI's decisions will be biased. Period. And in healthcare, that's not just an oops. That can lead to seriously unequal and even dangerous outcomes for people.
And this isn't just a theory. This quote points to a documented real-world case. It's a really stark reminder of the risk we're running. If we're not incredibly careful, these systems can just soak up and even amplify the worst of our societal biases. Imagine that kind of error happening in a medical diagnosis. The consequences could be devastating.
And that brings us to the data privacy dilemma. It's a tough one. Because for these models to get smart, they need to learn from vast amounts of our most personal, most sensitive health information. So the fundamental problem we have to solve is this. How do we train them on all that data while at the same time protecting every single patient's privacy with everything we've got? We have to guard against security risks and even the possibility of data being traced back to an individual.
So, okay, the problems are big. But what's the path forward? How do we actually build a future where we can trust these incredibly powerful tools with something as important as our health?
Well, there's a roadmap. And the key thing to know is that this isn't going to be one giant leap. It's a careful step-by-step journey. It starts right now with creating really solid benchmarks to measure how well these things work and how fair they are. In the near term, we absolutely need clear rules and regulations. Then we have to get doctors, data scientists, and ethicists all working together. And the long-term goal? To have systems that can talk to each other inside hospitals, breaking down those data silos safely and seamlessly.
And maybe the most important point of all is this. Human expertise has to stay right at the center of everything. The goal here is not to replace doctors and nurses. Absolutely not. The goal is to build powerful tools that supercharge their expertise, that act as a brilliant assistant. That means continuous feedback from human experts has to be baked into the very core of how we develop and improve these AI systems.
So here's the bottom line. This powerful AI is coming, and it's coming fast. It has the potential to make our healthcare better, faster, and way more personalized. But it also forces us to ask some really fundamental questions about trust, about safety, and about fairness. And that brings us to the final crucial question. Are we ready to trust it with our health? That's something we're all going to have to answer together.